It was like something inside her broke, and I didn't know if it would ever come back together. I wasn't even supposed to be in the room. I worked for them mostly as a nanny for their 2-year-old son, Malik, but that day, I was in the kitchen getting lunch ready when it all went down. Her name was Tanya. She was soft-spoken, beautiful, and always kind. Tanya wasn't the type of person you'd expect to end up with someone like Chase Morgan. Chase was one of those names you hear on TV: billionaire, tech genius, the kind of guy who wore expensive suits just to take them off for Instagram. But when they met 3 years ago, none of that seemed to matter. He charmed her at some bar downtown where she was working double shifts as a waitress. Everyone thought it was a fairy tale, a poor black girl marrying a rich white guy. People loved that kind of story. I was happy for her. Who wouldn't be? She had struggled her whole life. Her parents had passed when she was young, and she'd been scraping by ever since. When she told me she was pregnant, her face lit up like she'd won the lottery. But all of that shattered the day she overheard Chase on the phone. It started as a regular afternoon. Tanya was upstairs putting Malik down for his nap. Chase was in his study, pacing back and forth like he always did when he took work calls. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but his voice was loud, too loud. "I can't believe you're still hung up on that bet," he laughed. Yeah, I married her. So what? $1 million. Is $1 million, man. My stomach dropped. Look, it wasn't supposed to go this far. It was just a joke, you know. Find someone who'd never dream of being with a guy like me, sweep her off her feet, and boom, payout. But, yeah, she grew on me, I guess. Tanya came downstairs at that exact moment. She stopped dead in her tracks, clutching Malik's baby monitor. Her face went pale as she listened. "Does she know?" Chase laughed again. "Of course not. Why would I tell her? She's got a good life now. She should be thanking me." I swear, the air in the room got heavier. Tanya stood there for what felt like forever before quietly walking into the study. She didn't slam the door. She didn't yell. She just opened it and said, "Tell me what I just heard isn't true." The blood drained from Chase's face. "Tanya, wait, is it true?" He stammered, trying to spin some excuse, but it was pointless. She already knew. "I gave you everything," she said, her voice trembling. "I trusted you. I loved you. I couldn't take it anymore." I grabbed Malik and rushed upstairs. I didn't want him to hear the shouting that followed. The next few weeks were the hardest. Tanya moved out with Malik, staying in a cramped apartment her cousin lent her. Chase tried to apologize, but it was too late. She told him she didn't care about the money or the lifestyle, she just wanted to raise her son in peace. I still visit her sometimes. She's working 2 jobs again, but she seems happier now, freer somehow. She told me once that what hurt the most wasn't the betrayal, it was knowing that she had been someone's game. As for Chase, I think he regrets it more than he'll admit. He tried to start over with Tanya, but she wouldn't let him. And honestly, I don't blame her. You can't undo that kind of damage. If there's one thing I learned from all this, it's that love without respect isn't love at all. Tanya deserved better. She still does. And every time I see her smiling with Malik in her arms, I know she's finally starting to believe it too. After Tanya moved out, Chase spiraled for a while. It was like he finally understood the weight of what he'd done, but by then, it didn't matter. Tanya had drawn her line in the sand. No amount of apologies, gifts, or promises could fix it. She told him, "You didn't just hurt me. You broke my trust, and that's something money can't buy back." He still sent child support regularly, more than what was required, but Tanya refused to let him have any control over her life. She'd been through too much to let him make her feel small again. There was this one moment that stuck with me. It was a few months after the fallout, and Chase showed up unannounced at the daycare Tanya worked at. He looked out of Placia's tailored suit, shiny car, all that. He was holding a teddy bear bigger than Malik. Tanya met him outside, keeping her distance. "What are you doing here?" she asked, crossing her arms. "I just want to see Malik," he said, looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. "I miss him. I miss you." Tanya shook her head. "You don't get to miss us. You had us, and you threw it away. Malik will see you when he's ready, and I'll make sure he knows the truth. But you and I, we're done, Chase." The way she stood there, calm but firm, made me feel so proud of her. It was like she'd finally found her voice after years of living in someone else's shadow. Chase looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just nodded, handed her the bear, and walked away. Life hasn't been easy for Tanya since then. But she's tough. She's the kind of tough that comes from years of struggle, the kind that doesn't break even when it bends. She's also found a small community to lean on, other single moms at the daycare, neighbors, even me. We have this little circle now where we help each other out. One of her friends, a woman named Jackie, even got her connected with a program to go back to school part-time. The last time I saw her, she had just finished a shift at the daycare. Malik was running around with a plastic dinosaur, giggling like he didn't have a care in the world. Tanya looked tired, but there was a glow to Hera's quiet strength. "I'm finally starting to feel like myself again," she told me. "Not Chase's wife, not some charity case. Just me, and that's enough." Her words stuck with me. Tanya's story wasn't about a man's betrayal, not really. It was about her finding her worth in a world that tried to tell her she didn't have any. As for Chase, I think he's learned his lesson, but the truth is, some lessons come too late. He still calls sometimes, asking about Malik. Tanya keeps it polite but distant. She told me she's forgiven him not for his sake, but for hers. "Forgiveness doesn't mean I forget," she said once. "It just means I won't let him live in my head rent-free anymore." And that's Tanya in a nutshell. Resilient. Strong. Unstoppable. A year passed, and Tanya was in an even better place. She had moved out of her cousin's apartment and into a modest 2-bedroom unit on her own. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was hers, and she made it a home. The walls were covered in Malik's crayon drawings and pictures of her little family, just her and Malik now. She had finished a certificate program in early childhood education, thanks to the school program Jackie had connected her with. Now, she was working as a teacher's assistant at a preschool. It didn't pay much, but Tanya loved the work. She had a way with kids, calming and uplifting them in ways even the best teachers struggled to match. Every time I visited, I saw Malik growing happier and healthier. He was a little ball of energy, always laughing and asking a million questions. Tanya made sure he knew he was loved, and that he had a bright future ahead of him. But Chase wasn't doing so well. Word got around that his company was under investigation for tax fraud. Turns out, the man who seemed to have everything wasn't as invincible as he pretended to be. His public image took a hit, and for once, it seemed like the world wasn't on his side. He showed up again one evening, knocking on Tanya's door. She hadn't expected him, and when she opened the door, she immediately stepped out onto the porch to block his view inside. "What do you want, Chase?" she asked, her tone firm but not unkind. He looked thinner, like the stress had carved away at him. "I just wanted to talk. Please," she sighed, crossing her arms. "About what?" I've been thinking a lot. About us, about Malik, about everything I messed up." He ran a hand through his hair, looking at the ground like he couldn't meet her eyes. "I know I can't undo what I did. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I just want to be in Malik's life, even if it's just a little. I want to try to be a good father." Tanya stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "It's not about what you want, Chase. It's about what Malik needs. And what he needs is stability and honesty. Can you give him that?" He nodded quickly. "I'll do whatever it takes." She didn't say yes right away. Tanya wasn't the kind of person to make decisions lightly, especially when it came to her son. But she told him they could start with supervised visits, short ones, and only if Malik felt comfortable. Over time, those visits became more regular. Chase showed up, stayed respectful of Tanya's boundaries, and genuinely tried to bond with Malik. It wasn't easy for him. Malik didn't warm up to him right away. But kids have a way of seeing through people. And eventually, Malik saw that his dad was trying. Tanya, meanwhile, kept building her life. She started working on an associate degree in education, and with every step forward, you could see her confidence growing. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. One day, we sat together at her kitchen table while Malik napped. She was filling out scholarship applications, and I asked her how she felt about everything, about Chase, about her future. She leaned back in her chair, a thoughtful look on her face. "I used to think that what happened with Chase was the worst thing in my life," she said. "But now, I think it was a turning point. It forced me to see my own strength. It made me realize I don't need anyone to save me, I can save myself." And she had. It's over. It never will be. But watching her reclaim her life, build something solid and beautiful out of the pieces that were left behind, is one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen. She's not just surviving anymore. She's living, and every time I see her smile, I know she's finally found what she always deserved: peace, joy, and the knowledge that she's enough, just as she is.